All right, let's dive in. Today we're tackling parenting advice, and we've got a gold mine of comments from a Reddit thread. Parents were letting loose, sharing their, the good, the bad, and the just plain interesting when it comes to raising kids.
Yeah, it's amazing how this one thread just blew up. Hundreds of responses. It's like a collective sigh of relief from parents everywhere.
Yeah.
You can really feel that shared experience, the ups and downs of parenting.
Exactly. And that's what we're here to unpack. No sugarcoating, just real talk about what it's like to be a parent. Hopefully, you'll walk away with some wisdom, some solidarity, and maybe even a few light bulb moments.
Think of it as Parenting 101 straight from the front lines, with some expert insights thrown in for good measure.
Okay, so one thing that really stood out was arguments. How do we handle disagreements in front of our kids? Do we shield them completely, or is there something to be said for showing them how to handle conflict in a healthy way?
That's a great question, and the responses are all over the place. One commenter, Looky Looky Mawookie, actually suggests arguing respectfully in front of kids. They see it as a chance to teach them good communication and how to resolve conflicts.
So on the surface, that sounds pretty good, right? Turning an argument into a teachable moment. But then you have comments like Lorenzo Stomps, who talks about how anxious and tense they felt as a kid, even when their parents' arguments were pretty calm.
And that's a crucial point. Kids are incredibly sensitive to the emotional vibe, even if we think we're hiding it well. Research actually suggests that especially younger kids don't always get the words, but they pick up on the tone, the body language, the tension.
It's like they're these little emotional sponges soaking it all up.
Yeah.
And there's this really powerful story from Irinato Fusername-Spa. Their 4-year-old actually tried to physically separate them from their partner during an argument, yelling, "No, that's my mama."
Heartbreaking, right? But also really insightful. It shows how deeply affected young children can be by arguments, even if they don't fully understand what the argument is about.
It makes you rethink that whole arguing respectfully thing, huh? Even with the best intentions, the impact on a little kid can be huge. Makes you realize just how much they're taking in, even when we think they're not paying attention.
And that leads us to a related theme that popped up a lot, modeling. That old saying, monkey see, monkey do, but in the context of parenting.
Totally. We can tell our kids to be kind, patient, respectful all day long, but if our actions don't match up, they're going to copy what they see, not what they hear.
Exactly. And Drake tells this story about their son mimicking their stress-induced hand biting. Imagine that, their toddler picking up on this unintentional habit even though they were trying to manage their stress.
It's like a mirror reflecting back our own behaviors,
Yeah.
our quirks, and sometimes that reflection can be a little uncomfortable. It's a good reminder that self-awareness is so important as a parent. We got to be mindful of our actions, our reactions, our habits, because they're shaping how our kids see the world.
So how do we build that self-awareness? Well, mindfulness is one way, paying attention to our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors in the moment without judgment. Another powerful tool is self-reflection, taking some time to journal, to meditate, or just really think about our actions and how they might affect our kids.
Like hitting the pause button, stepping back from the craziness of parenting, and really looking at our role in all of it.
And it's not about being perfect because who is? It's about making progress, recognizing where we can grow, getting support when we need it, and being open to learning and changing as parents.
Speaking of changing, let's move on to another topic that got a lot of people talking boundaries. That sweet spot between setting limits, allowing freedom, and of course, the dreaded no word.
Ah, yes. No, the cornerstone of parenting,
Yeah.
right. But in all the no's, there's this interesting conversation about saying yes sometimes.
Exactly. We can get so caught up in boundaries, rules, staying in control, that we forget about letting go, giving our kids space to explore, to make choices, to experience the joy of yes once in a while.
And N0TR3SP0ND1NG puts it pretty bluntly. On the other side of the coin, you won't die from saying yes for once. A good reminder for those parents who might be stuck in no mold.
It reminds us that saying yes doesn't mean we're losing control. Sometimes it's about picking our battles, choosing our moments, and recognizing that a little freedom can go a long way in helping kids feel empowered and independent.
And on the other side of that, we have this quote from The Secret Garden shared by the Welsh Mrs. M. Two worst things that can happen to a child is never to have his own way or always to have it.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
It reminds us that extremes aren't good. It's about finding that middle ground where kids get to experience both the satisfaction of getting their way and the resilience that comes from dealing with boundaries and setbacks.
And what's cool is that this idea of balance, letting kids experience success and failure, is actually rooted in child development. Research shows that facing setbacks and learning to overcome them is crucial for building motivation, resilience, and a belief in themselves.
So it's not just about giving in. It's about using those yes moments strategically as opportunities for growth and learning.
Exactly. And Balerial has this fascinating perspective. They talk about a 1 in 3 ratio for letting kids have their way, meaning we should let them win about 30% of the time, let them experience that success. They compare it to how lion cubs are trained. Mothers intentionally let their cubs win sometimes to build their confidence and hunting skills.
That's a cool analogy. So it's not about spoiling them or letting them run wild. It's about recognizing that experiencing both wins and losses is essential for their development.
And if you think about it from a psychological perspective, it fits perfectly with what we know about motivation. When kids feel like they have some control, when they believe their efforts can lead to success, they're more likely to be motivated to try to keep going and to learn from their mistakes.
Makes total sense. So it's not just about the yes or the no. It's
Yeah.
about the bigger picture. We're trying to teach our kids about boundaries, resilience, and the power of their own choices.
And speaking of choices, another big theme is how we discipline our kids. It's not just about setting consequences, it's about doing it in a way that preserves their dignity and shows respect.
Because sometimes the way we deliver those consequences can be more harmful than the consequences themselves. There's this great advice from Bongo Jot that captures this perfectly. Praise in public, punish in private.
It's so simple but so powerful, right? It's about protecting our kids' self-esteem even when they've messed up.
And SDR79 shares this awful story about seeing a mother publicly shaming her crying child at Disney World. You can just imagine the emotional scars, right? The humiliation, the feeling of being exposed and judged when you're already upset.
It's a stark reminder that public shaming, even if it's disguised as discipline, can have lasting negative effects on a child's sense of self-worth and emotional well-being. Research even shows that shame-based discipline can lead to feelings of worthlessness, anxiety, and even aggression.
We've got to remember that our kids are still learning, still developing, and they need our guidance, our support, and our empathy, even when they screw up.
And sometimes the best way to discipline is through private conversations where we can address the behavior without resorting to shame or humiliation. It's about creating a safe space where our children feel heard, understood, and supported, even when they're facing consequences.
It's about teaching them that making mistakes is part of learning, and that we're there to help them through those challenges, not to tear them down.
And this idea of creating a safe space extends beyond discipline. It's also about how we handle our own emotions, how we model healthy relationships, and how we create a family environment where everyone feels seen, valued, and respected.
And that leads us to a heavy but super important topic that kept coming up.
Yeah.
Normalizing unhealthy relationship dynamics.
This is where the thread gets really real and raw, and it reminds us that our actions as parents have ripple effects, shaping not just our kids' childhoods, but also their future relationships, their understanding of love, and their ability to form healthy attachments.
And Dirt Pie says it straight up. You will normalize unhealthy relationship dynamics if you don't fix them in your life. How they form attachments is built before they leave elementary school. You cannot hide contempt. You cannot hide apathy. You have to care about what you normalize for them. They see everything you do and the behavior you condone.
Wow, right. It's a wake-up call, and it underscores just how crucial it is for us to model healthy relationships, both within our families and in our romantic relationships. Because let's be honest, kids are like little detectives picking up on all those subtle cues, those unspoken tensions, those patterns that shape their idea of what's normal in a relationship.
It's like they're studying our every move, every word, every interaction, and coming up with their own theories about what love, respect, and conflict are supposed to look like.
And you know what? The research backs this up. Early childhood experiences play a huge role in shaping our attachment styles, which are basically the patterns of relating that we develop early on and carry into our adult relationships.
So if we're constantly showing our kids unhealthy dynamics, whether it's constant arguing, dismissiveness, or emotional distance, we're basically setting them up to repeat those patterns in their own lives.
It's a sobering thought, but it also gives us the power to change things. It reminds us that by addressing our own relationship patterns, by getting support when we need it, by consciously modeling healthy communication and conflict resolution, we can break those cycles and create a legacy of healthier, happier relationships for our kids and for generations to come.
It's about recognizing that parenting isn't just about raising kids. It's about breaking cycles, healing old wounds, and creating a more loving, more respectful world, one family at a time.
And on that note, we'll pause here. But we've got so much more to unpack. Join us for part 2 of this deep dive, where we'll explore the importance of letting go of expectations, the challenges of screen time, and the often surprising emotional realities of being a parent.
And hey, if you're finding this deep dive helpful, or even just relatable, we'd love for you to subscribe to Voices of the Soul and check out the Shauna Palaj YouTube channel for more thought-provoking conversations. We're all about exploring these big life questions, sharing different perspectives, and reminding you that you're not alone on this crazy journey. See you in part 2. Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of parenting advice straight from the parents. We left off talking about letting go of expectations and allowing our kids to be well themselves, not who we think they should be.
Yeah, it's a tough one for a lot of parents, right? That pull between our hopes for our kids and the reality that their path might look totally different from what we imagined.
It's so easy to get caught up in those expectations, especially if we're carrying around, our own unfulfilled dreams or ideas about what success is supposed to look like. But Aggressive Cup 8452 really hits the nail on the head. Kids are not an extension of you. At some point, you need to let it go and let them be who they want to be without your expectations or judgment.
It's a good reminder that our kids are their own people, not blank slates for us to project our own desires onto. They come into this world with their own strengths and talents and passions, and it's our job to nurture those, not try to mold them into something they're not.
And Soup Evening 123's story about their controlling mother really shows how damaging those unmet expectations can be. They talk about the constant pressure to live up to their mom's ideals, the guilt and resentment that built up over time, and how it affected their self-esteem and their ability to trust their own judgment.
It's a cautionary tale for sure. It's about recognizing and respecting our kids' autonomy even when it's hard. It's about understanding that true love means letting go, allowing our kids to stumble, to make mistakes, to find their own way, even if it's not the way we would have chosen.
It's about trusting them to figure things out, to become their own people, even if those people are a little messy, a little unconventional, or different from what we pictured. And sometimes that means facing our own insecurities, our fears, and our need to control.
Exactly. It's an ongoing process of looking inward, challenging our assumptions, and being open to the possibility that our kids' definition of success might look totally different from ours.
It's about shifting our focus from shaping them into who we think they should be to supporting them in becoming who they truly are.
And speaking of supporting our kids, let's talk about another hot topic from the thread: screen time. It's a challenge for so many parents, especially these days when screens are everywhere you look.
It's a constant battle, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to find that balance between letting our kids engage with technology, which is a huge part of their world, and setting healthy limits so it doesn't take over their lives.
And the comments in the thread really show the range of opinions on this. You have Nostalgic Revenant who says, the more you let them stare at that tablet and let that tablet raise the kid, the more messed up in the head that kid is going to be.
That's pretty strong, but I think there's some truth to it. We've all seen those kids totally glued to their screens, zoning out, missing out on real-life interactions, and completely losing it when the screen is taken away.
And then you have parents who see technology as a tool for learning creativity and connection. But even they agree that it's important to set boundaries and make sure screens don't replace those essential real-life experiences that kids need to develop.
Because at the end of the day, it's not about demonizing technology. It's about using it in a smart and intentional way. It's about recognizing that screens can be both good and bad, depending on how they're used.
And that's where parents come in. It's our job to set those limits, to model healthy screen habits, and to create a family environment where technology has its place but doesn't run the show.
So what does that look like in real life? It might mean setting specific screen time limits, having screen-free zones in the house, doing family activities that don't involve screens, and of course, practicing what we preach.
And the research actually shows that too much screen time can have negative effects on a lot of areas, like language development, social skills, attention span, emotional regulation, and even sleep.
So it's not just about keeping our kids entertained or preventing screen addiction. It's about protecting their developing brains and making sure they're getting the rich, multisensory experiences they need to thrive.
And Totalist tells this really interesting story about their cousins who were basically raised by a tablet after their mom passed away. It's a sad story, but it really highlights what can happen when screens become the primary caregivers.
It's a good reminder that screens can never replace real human connection. Those face-to-face interactions, those shared moments of laughter, those warm hugs, those nuanced conversations that help a child develop emotionally and socially.
And that brings us to something that doesn't always get talked about enough, the emotional reality of parenting. Social media often paints this picture of blissful parenting, but the comments in this thread show a much more realistic and sometimes raw side of things.
Let's be honest, parenting isn't always sunshine and rainbows. It's messy, it's exhausting, it's challenging. And there are definitely moments when you doubt yourself, your choices, and your ability to do this whole parenting thing right.
And Throwaway 7 Meter puts it out there. The first 6 months were the worst of my life. I actively hated it. I hated it so much that I felt we'd made a critical life mistake.
It takes a lot of courage to admit that, and it goes against the perfect picture we often see online. It's a reminder that it's okay to not love every minute of being a parent. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. It's okay to have doubts. And it's definitely okay to ask for help.
Exactly. We need to normalize those feelings, create a space where parents can be open and honest about the tough parts of parenting without feeling judged or ashamed. Because when we pretend everything is perfect, when we only share the highlight reel, we create this culture of silence and isolation, which makes it even harder for parents to reach out for support when they need it.
And research shows that parental burnout is real, and it can have serious consequences for both parents and kids. It's that feeling of being emotionally drained, detached, and like you're failing as a parent.
So it's so important to take care of ourselves, to build strong support systems, and to seek professional help if we need it. Because when we take care of ourselves, we can be better parents for our kids.
So it's not selfish to put our own well-being first. It's actually essential for healthy and happy parenting.
And now let's switch gears for a minute and enjoy some of those little nuggets of wisdom from the thread, those one-liners that perfectly capture the joys, the struggles, and sometimes the humor of parenting.
I like that. So what gems did you find buried in this Reddit treasure trove?
Well, one that made me laugh but also not in agreement was from Get Off the Gas. You said your kid's never going to do that. Well, they're going to do it. It's a good reminder that no matter how hard we try to control things, our kids are their own people, and they will inevitably do things that surprise us, delight us, and sometimes make us want to tear our hair out.
It's about surrendering to the chaos, accepting that we can't predict or control everything, and finding the humor in those unexpected moments.
And speaking of unpredictable moments, Octopus Pond keeps it real with
Poo. So much poo. Oh yeah, the joys of potty training, right? The assault on your sense of smell and the sheer volume of bodily fluids that a tiny human can produce.
It's a reminder to embrace the messy, the gross, and the totally unpredictable parts of parenting. Because, let's be honest, sometimes those moments make the best stories.
And sometimes those stories come with a dose of humility. Brunch Blanket reminds us, your baby is special, but not more special than anyone else's baby.
It's a good reality check when our parental pride might be getting the best of us. It's a reminder that all children are unique and deserving of love and respect, but also that we need to teach our kids to be considerate members of society, to understand that their needs aren't always the most important.
It's about raising kind, empathetic humans, not entitled little emperors and empresses.
And for a bit of dark humor and a reminder that we're not in total control, we have twin frogs. Your kid might turn out stupid no matter what you do.
It's a little harsh, but it also speaks to the importance of letting go of perfectionism, accepting that we can't control everything, and that sometimes, despite our best efforts, things won't go exactly as planned.
It's about focusing on the journey, not just the destination. It's about nurturing our kids' curiosity, their love of learning, and their ability to think for themselves, even if their thinking doesn't always line up with ours.
It's about trusting them to find their own way, even if it's a little messy, a little different, and a lot more independent than we might be comfortable with.
And finally, a truth bomb from Tap Dancing Hellspawn that I think every parent can relate to. Don't expect too much sleep the first year. Also, until the day you die, you will be worrying to some degree about your children.
Isn't that the truth? The lack of sleep, the constant worrying, the never-ending mental load of keeping these little humans alive and well. But it's also a testament to how much we love them. Our unwavering commitment to these little beings who have stolen our hearts and turned our lives upside down.
It's a love that's fierce, protective, and never-ending. It's a love that survives the sleepless nights, the tantrums, the teenage drama, and all the challenges that come with raising another human being.
And it's a love that's worth celebrating, even amidst the chaos, the mess, and the occasional explosion of bodily fluids.
And on that note, we'll take another break. But stay tuned. Join us for the last part of our deep dive, where we'll uncover more insights from this amazing Reddit thread, including tips for navigating discipline, encouraging independence, and finding that elusive balance in the crazy world of parenting.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into parenting. We've explored a lot so far, from handling arguments in front of our kids to modeling healthy relationships. Now, in this last stretch, we're going to dig into some more gems from this Reddit thread, covering everything from discipline to raising independent kids and finding that balance in the whirlwind of parenting.
It's been an amazing journey, hasn't it? Hearing these firsthand accounts, these unfiltered perspectives from parents, in the thick of it, dealing with the highs, the lows, and everything in between.
It's like a parenting masterclass, taught not from some textbook, but from the messy, chaotic, and often funny reality of everyday family life.
And for me, what keeps coming up is recognizing our kids as individuals, as separate people with their own unique needs, desires, and paths.
Right. We talked about letting go of expectations, embracing their individuality, and giving them the space to explore, experiment, and figure out who they really are.
And that connects with another important theme that emerged. How do we discipline our kids in a way that encourages respect, accountability, and ultimately a sense of agency?
Because it's not just about punishing bad behavior, it's about teaching them important life lessons, helping them understand the consequences of their actions, and guiding them to become responsible and caring people.
And Rocco72 nails it. It is your responsibility to raise your child, not the schools or anyone else. It's a wake-up call. We can't outsource this to teachers, coaches, or even grandparents. It's up to us as parents to set the example, to instill the values, and to guide our kids toward being their best selves.
It's about owning our role as parents, knowing that it's not always easy, but it's the most rewarding and impactful job we'll ever have.
And sometimes that means setting firm boundaries even when our kids push back. Because as much as we want to be their friends, our main job is to be their guides, their mentors, their advocates, and sometimes that means making tough choices that they might not like.
And remember Brunch Blanket's advice. Don't think you can get away with saying, but they're just a baby child, when they've done something wrong or annoying. How will they learn if you're always using this as an excuse?
It reminds us that even little kids can understand right from wrong, and that by holding them accountable, even in age-appropriate ways, we're teaching them about responsibility, respect, and empathy.
It's about setting them up for success, not just in childhood, but for their whole lives.
And talking about setting them up for success, another key theme is fostering independence. It's about giving our kids chances to make their own choices, to solve problems, and to navigate the world with more and more autonomy as they grow.
Because the goal isn't to control our kids or shield them from every challenge. It's to give them the tools and the confidence they need to thrive as independent people.
And sometimes that means letting go of our own fears and anxieties and our need to micromanage every little thing.
It's about trusting them, even when it's scary, to learn to grow and to spread their wings and fly.
You know, there's that saying, parenting is a marathon, not a sprint. And I think that's really reflected in these comments, the sense of endurance, of sticking with it, of riding out the tough times and celebrating the good times along the way.
Because let's be real, there will be tantrums, there will be sleepless nights, there will be those moments when you question everything.
Yeah.
But there will also be moments of pure joy, of laughter, that melts your heart, of pride and connection, that make it all worth it.
And that's what this deep dive has really shown me. Parenting is both incredibly challenging and incredibly rewarding. It's a mix of love, frustration, laughter, tears, and yeah, whole lot of poop.
It's a journey we're all on together, sharing our stories, our struggles, and our wins, reminding each other that we're not alone in this crazy, beautiful, and often hilarious adventure of raising kids.
So to all the parents who shared their thoughts in that Reddit thread, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for your honesty, your vulnerability, and your willingness to share your experiences, the good, the bad, and everything in between. Your voices are important, your stories connect with us, and your insights are so valuable to everyone who's on this parenting journey.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it insightful, relatable, and maybe even a little reassuring to know that you're not alone in this messy, beautiful, and often hilarious experience of raising kids.
And if you're craving more thought-provoking discussions, more insightful deep dives, and a sense of connection with other people who are on a similar path, be sure to subscribe to Voices of the Soul and check out the Shauna Palaj YouTube channel. We're all about exploring the big questions, challenging what we think we know, and reminding you that there's always more to learn, to grow, and to discover.
Until next time, keep those conversations going, keep those connections strong, and keep embracing the wild ride of parenthood. See you soon.